Hi, this is Steve, and I want to welcome you back to the Tech Leader Talk podcast. Would you like some insights on how you can develop strong leaders in the tech industry or in your tech company? That's what I'm talking about today with my guest, Kevin Gazzara. Kevin's a senior partner and an instructor at Magna Leadership Solutions. He's a trusted advisor for executives of small to mid-sized companies that want to create strong leaders within their organization. So Kevin's going to talk about some of the different techniques for developing effective leaders in the tech industry. And those are going to be based on his insights of a lot of years working in the field, and in particular, 18 years of experience working with Intel. Kevin shares his thoughts about the importance of taking ownership of a problem and identifying your contribution to the problem. And he believes that by taking ownership and reflecting on your own actions, you can create a positive impact within the organization. During our call, Kevin also talks about how leadership training is different in a technology company. So if you work in a technology company, those could be some valuable insights for you. And I know you're going to get some value out of the conversation and hopefully some good tips that you can use to improve your own business. So let's get to the discussion with Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
It's my pleasure, Steve. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I gave the audience a little bit of an intro about what you do, but how did you get there? What's your journey that kind of led you to the work that you're doing today with Magna Leadership Solutions?
Well, I'd say it probably wasn't a linear journey. I started out on the tech side of the world. Did my undergrad in engineering and business, and went off and did my MBA. And what I really found out is I love teaching, and I love the human side. So ultimately, after being out of school for about 17 years, I went back and did all my doctoral work in organizational leadership and management. And it's really been my passion and what I've been doing for the last 30 years of my 40 years or so in business.
Okay. So I've worked in tech companies. A good percentage of the audience are working in tech companies in various roles. Some are getting started, some are more senior leaders. How is it, especially when you come to leadership training, how's it different in a tech company?
Well, I spent my last 10 years, I spent 18 years at Intel, and I came in there as a marketing engineer and then ultimately a product manager and operations manager, and I managed a small division as a GM. And I love the tech side of things. What I really found out was I love doing the training and development of other leaders. And since then, with Magna Leadership, I retired from the corporate world 16 years ago. And it was one of my goals to be able to go work with other organizations, particularly tech organizations, to do a lot of work with tech organizations. But I'd say the biggest difference that we have found is that, particularly when I was at Intel, I managed Intel's management leadership development for the last 10 years while I was there in Intel University. We used to do 2,500 managers a year in 10 different countries. And when I retired from Intel in 2007, we had just finished training our 40,000th manager. So I got pretty good at that. And I would say that probably the biggest difference is, tech companies have a tendency to be fact or science-based, right? A heavy emphasis around bringing things in to do training and development that are really grounded and statistically validated, which I support absolutely as a researcher. And I think Intel did a really nice job that they didn't devalue the human side. And I think that's probably the biggest difference I see for many organizations, particularly organizations we've worked with that have been nonprofits or have a lot of human relationships and customer service and so forth. The focus is much more on the human side. And that's absolutely critical. I think if you lean too heavily on one side or the other, it becomes imbalanced. So I think you have to have a balance of the two. But I would say the biggest thing is, the leaning on factual based elements of training that are really proven.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, as an engineer myself, that's kind of what I gravitate towards. It's hard to kind of shift mode sometimes and do the storytelling or the other the people skills. It doesn't come as naturally. Let's put it that way. So,
and what I would say is it's a skill that can be developed. And I've gotten actually really pretty good at it. And even though I have a very analytic mind, I've seen the value of it. People connect with imagery and stories and so forth. And if you can't connect with people, then you can't allow the kind of the rational mind to engage. So the key is you always have to connect emotionally first. And then the rational piece makes it really easy. If you try to do the reverse, quite often it's an uphill battle.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. So in the training that you did with the 40,000 people, what was some of that kind of over a progression, like as people were growing in their career or growing in their job and moving up to different leadership or management functions?
Well, I think, one of the things that I would say about Intel in particular, I would say is a great role model for a learning organization. We had, I was managing Intel University. This is going to sound like a crazy number, but they had 12,000 different training programs. It seems like almost unbelievable. Ultimately, we kind of got that whittled down to about 2,500. But every fabricating facility had their own version of whether it was communicating or conflict or process design or whatever, and it got really, really crazy. So we had to get it kind of whittled down. But what I would say is that Intel being the learning organization, they focused on lots and lots of different areas, and there was a whole sequence of development that you went through. There was first line manager training, which we called managing through people. There was middle manager training, where you were a manager of managers. There was senior manager training and executive training as well. And there was a whole series, a whole kind of ladder that you went through to develop yourself as a manager. And Intel did a really great job. If you were a high potential before you got into the management position, quite often you would get sent off to be able to go and do some of these training programs. And many of the training programs were, half day, one day. The managing through people, the one that I was talking about, the 40,000 people that we had done, was a intensive offsite. We used to take people offsite to resorts and so forth and lock them away for 5 to 6 days. And it was, 18-hour days where you went and learned and you worked in small groups and you worked with each other and you applied all the tools and you worked on real projects. And it was very, very much of an action learning kind of an environment. And that works really, really well for two reasons. One, because you get great tools and you get to practice them so you can bring them back into the factory. But the other thing is it develops this unbelievable network because you're there with the manufacturing people, with the design people, with the marketing people, with finance. Everyone is there, and we would mix up the groups so you realize that that little world that you lived in, if you were in a bunny suit in the fab making chips, that wasn't your only source of connectivity.
Mm-hmm. I guess probably be meeting other people, but I assume then through that they learn what other different parts of the company do and what those different job functions are, and how they all work together, and get a better understanding maybe of how their job or their role fits into the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And I think the thing that all of them come away with is I can learn as much, maybe even more, of sharing my challenges with someone that doesn't understand all the bits and bytes of what I'm doing, because most of the challenges are very, very similar. They're just with a different kind of area of focus. So going to someone in purchasing, when you're having a design problem, it talks about the importance of communication and leadership and connectivity and, doing good analysis, both from a business as well as a technical perspective, getting those perspectives and realizing, hey, these other people can be resources for me, I think was completely invaluable.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I know some of the listeners are maybe younger people or earlier in their career, and maybe they're just starting. I was there years ago, and maybe they're just starting to move into kind of a management role. Maybe they're starting to manage a team or something like that. What can they be doing? Maybe they're in a company that doesn't really have much of a training program. What should they be looking for or thinking about to kind of start learning their basic leadership management skills?
Well, I think the first thing I'd say, Steve, is, we have a program, we do a 6-month program called the Leading Forward Academy. And it's based on a lot of the work that I had done at Intel, a lot of foundational work, as well as work that I've done. I've been, professor at 6 different universities and created 4 different master's and doctoral level classes around leadership. It's taking kind of that information and bringing it together. And I think one of the things that we found in our leadership academy is we really have 2 foundations, and this is where I would start with the young people as far as advice. And the first thing is you need to take ownership. One of our foundations is I'm the problem or I'm contributing to the problem. Maintaining that mindset up front for everything that you do. When you walk into a situation, whether you're managing someone or you're managing a project, the first thing is if things are going badly, the first question you want to say, ask yourself is, hey, am I the problem here, or am I contributing to the problem? And when you start kind of with an internal focus, solutions are many. When you start on the other side, solutions are few. And you don't have to necessarily stay there. Maintaining that mindset and a kind of a growth mindset is absolutely critical. And that's the first of the 2 recommendations I give to the younger leaders. And I think the second thing is that we focus on is with regard to respect. And respect is when you are in a conflict or in a very heated situation. Our second kind of commandment is always give the other person the first opportunity to look or be successful, right? And as a leader, if you can do that, rather than just kind of lambasting them or, just jumping on them because you're at a higher position than they are, that really sets a bad tone for the organization. It really denigrates your ability to be recognized as a leader, and it really destroys relationships. And leadership is all about balancing task and relationship. And if you don't have the relationship, it's really, really difficult to get the tasks accomplished.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. And yeah, very good advice. When you were managing the kind of the leadership programs and doing all the training at Intel, what activities or what, I guess maybe activity is the best word. What things did you do that were kind of some of the most effective, or where you would see the light bulb or the aha moment go off, and all of a sudden somebody gets it because of that activity or that event?
Well, one thing I would say is, a good portion of the workshops, the training, and we don't use the word training because I think training has a bad connotation to a lot of people where they see it as a sunk cost as opposed to an investment.
Oh, okay.
So we don't use the term training. We use the term about development, right? And one of the things is that we do workshops and we focus around action learning, right? So you have to bring a real challenge in. I think that's one of the things that Intel did really well. When you were going to, they had a few basic programs that pretty much everyone went through. You went through constructive confrontation and effective meetings, effective communication. You went through the Influence Edge class. There's lots of foundational things that I'd say almost everybody at Intel had, and they were all action learning. So rather than just theory, that you were to bring your real challenge that you were working on into the classroom, and then the classroom was set up as a safe environment for you to fail forward fast. And if you could do that, generally we know there's lots of good behavioral science that says that if you get comfortable where you can take that, push that to the edge and get that failure without it being fatal, you're more likely to take it back into the workplace. And I think that's one of the things that Intel did incredibly well, bringing action learning. And then eventually one of the things that It was very popular at Intel. I was fortunate enough to be one of the 4 trainers that got certified from Peter Senge up at MIT to teach with systems thinking. And it's really thinking in a much, much bigger way to look at cause and effect and correlational elements to solve really big, gnarly problems. And many of the more senior managers had gone through that. And I got certified to teach that in 1996 and have been teaching it ever since. And I'm an incredibly big proponent of that, not only for the work we do with the clients we have, but also I try to bring that into the university, the different universities I teach at.
Okay. There's certainly some big problems out there that need to be solved. And
Yeah.
the big companies seem to have a never-ending flow of them. So, okay. That's good. I didn't realize there was just training or development on everything, but I guess I had never seen ones there. Suppose a listener is working or is a manager or a leader in kind of a small tech company, and they don't really have much of a leadership development program. If they want to, if they're growing and they want to be kind of grooming or training their younger people to be better leaders and help the overall company, where would they start? What would be a good first step?
Well, I think the key is start, right? That's one of the biggest challenges.
Okay.
Is we've worked with a lot of small to medium to even large companies, and I think one, particularly as we get into working with the larger companies, smaller organizations within the large company, one of the things that we run into is you get into this analysis paralysis piece, particularly with tech companies, and they just never start. And our position is just get started. There's so many different approaches out there that you can use with regard to developing your leadership. There's lots of servant leadership models, or the leadership pipeline, or Stephen Covey's work that's been done, John Maxwell. There's, I think if you go on, I think the last time I did a Google search or an Amazon search, I think there was almost 15,000 different books just on leadership. And one of the things I would say is don't get hung up on what's the best. Is I'd say a good portion of them are really pretty well grounded. They all have very similar kind of themes. Is pick an approach. Go look at what other organizations, particularly if there's another organization that's similar to yours, maybe a competitor or a supplier, or that you have, or even a customer's environment, is to pick an approach that they have, and get people started. And it doesn't have to be extensive. A lot of companies, particularly small companies that don't have big budgets, is they do things that we used to call them at Intel lunch and learns, right? That you pick a leadership book. In fact, we had written our own leadership book called The Leader of Oz. Super easy. We designed it specifically. It's about a 3-hour read, and we took all of our heavy academic stuff and we put it into a story format, right? And we took the story of the Wizard of Oz, and we wrote a business parable and called it The Leader of Oz, of this company that's in Kansas and gets whisked away and drops into Silicon Valley, and you get the wicked VP from the East. And so it was fun to do.
Funny.
But it's heavily grounded around a servant leadership kind of model, and we really designed it for managers that didn't have a big budget, and you can get the books, I don't know whatever they are on Amazon, $10 or $15, and they're very, very easy read. But each of the 21 chapters has a different focus on communication and motivation and engagement, those type of things. So get people talking. Get people reading, have conversations. We used to do something in Intel called what used to call it accountability partners. Now we call them capability partners because it feels less policing. And one of the things that we do is set people up with a partner so that they can have this constant sharing with each other. And it's the rising tide lifts all boats. So if you can do that. Just get started. Even if you've decided that halfway through that type of approach, for whether it's Stephen Covey or our stuff, it doesn't matter. isn't working for you, it's easy to switch. And I think what they'll find is that you're not going to see any situation where you're going to pick up another book that's going to say, oh no, this stuff is all wrong. It's usually all complementary rather than contradictory.
When I see in not necessarily leadership, but other areas, I'll read from different experts, and sometimes it's a terminology change, or they just describe things a little bit differently. And for some reason, one clicks with me where the other one doesn't. So
yeah. So find something that resonates with you, and like I said, just get started. Boy, we have one company we work with that hired us to develop a leadership program. They had hired us where we gave them, I don't know, 7 different versions. The first version we had done in a couple of weeks, and they could have rolled it out within 30 days. And everybody had to get their hands in the pot. And even after 18 months, they still were not ready to roll it out. It was just completely crazy, so they had 18 months of time where they just did no development of their managers and leaders. And I think the downside of that is turnover, employee satisfaction scores start, going into the tank, turnover goes up, getting projects done gets more difficult. So, get started. Just it's the Nike thing. Just do it.
Yeah. Don't overthink it, like many engineers or tech people.
Yeah. Many of those are, I have been in that situation. I've learned to try to avoid that habit and recognize when I'm too far in the weeds and just move forward.
Yep. Well, then maybe that's where your capability partners could help with that. So maybe that company needed some high level capability partners.
Yeah, I think so.
So the company you work with now, Magna Leadership Solutions, how did you come up with the idea for that? What generated that?
So I had this personal goal that when I was 50, I was going to retire from the corporate world and just go and give back and, go help companies that didn't have $10 million budgets, help develop their leaders and help them be successful. So fortunately I had a 10-year plan. I had a great mentor and a great coach at Intel, Cecilia. I worked with her for many years. We had regular development plans. We put the short-term plan together, and the long-term was, when I was 50, I would have the opportunity to go and do something different. And through that, and this is one of the things that I would kind of recommend for people that have a kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, is get a plan in place. Do the things that are necessary to set you up for success. It's building your network. It's getting additional degrees. It's getting teaching opportunities. That's one of the reasons that when I started teaching more in universities in the evenings while I was still working at Intel, to get that experience so that I could do that. And then in 2007, I took two of my colleagues from Intel. They brought in a new VP at Intel from finance, and he had different ideas than we did about the how to do management and leadership development. We said, hey, okay, well, you're not going to follow our recommendations. We're just going to go do the same thing. So in June of 2007, the 3 of us left, and we started Magna Leadership Solutions. The way we came up with the name is both myself and my other partner, Dr. Ali Lakhani, who was actually a doctoral student of mine, and worked at Intel as a software design manager. We decided we wanted to do something different. So since we were both academics, when we were coming up with brainstorming for ideas, we thought, well, what's the highest degree you could get, which is summa cum laude. And we thought, well, Summa Leadership Solution sounds too much like sumo wrestling. So we thought, well, we'll just knock it down a level.
It makes the logo easy, though. But
yeah, we just knock it down a level from sumo to Magna, and that's the way we came up with the name. And the nice thing is that transition out of the corporate world into the entrepreneur world, where all of a sudden all of your benefits and all of your paychecks and everything stops. Mm-hmm. One is you need to be ready for that as academics. And since we were both teaching at a couple of universities at the time, we could ramp up our teaching to really kind of cover the fixed expenses that we had. And then as business came in, to the company and we grew the company, we could cut back. So that gave us a really, really nice kind of control valve there.
Yeah.
To make sure that we could stay in business.
Yep. It takes off some of that stress and the waking up in the middle of the night wondering how you pay the bills or make payroll or whatever.
Exactly. And most companies go, particularly consulting, we had great mentors to work with us to do that. And they all said the same thing. You have to give it 18 to 24 months. And if you're not willing and you don't have enough money to invest in yourself and your company for that period of time, don't do it. So we were ready to do that. And sure enough, I remember having the 18-month call with Dr. Lacani and Marlene Lundy, who was, she pretty much did all the work for us. She said she was the, Dr. Lacani and I were the thinkers and she was the doer. We had that 18, right? You do. And we recognized that 18 months, we hadn't landed our big contract yet. And still remember that call and saying, no, we got to give it the full 24. And sure enough, right around 19 months, we got this huge PO to do a massive leadership program for a 6,000 person company in the Bay Area. And that kickstarted us. And, we've been getting those ever since. So, last year was our best year ever. In fact, we had the conversation beginning of the year of like, how do we do less work, which is a wonderful place to be.
Good. So what's the favorite part of your work that you do today? What do you love the most?
Well, I think what I love the most, Steve, is that I love the opportunity to do lots and lots of different things. And I like to be able to, and I get to do that at my pace, right? So I do a lot of executive coaching. So I do some of that. I do some courseware development. We had a Zoom program. We've put all of our materials. When COVID hit, we moved everything from live to virtual, and that's worked incredibly well. So, I had a 4-hour leadership session with a big manufacturing company. Yesterday, we were teaching them about leadership and critical thinking. So I get to do a little bit of teaching, a little bit of development, some executive coaching, some research, and then the other thing is, from a family perspective, I've been married for 43 years. I got 2 beautiful daughters, and I have 2 really cute grandsons at 4.5 and 1.5. So I get to be able to spend lots of time with them. So right after this, I'll go spend about an hour or 2 with the grandkids. So I think that's the best thing about the job, having that ability to be flexible and do what I want to do, both from vacation as well as what mentally stimulates me.
Yep. I've talked with a lot of other entrepreneurs, and that's a common theme. It's the flexibility. They work hard and everything, especially in those first few years of building something, but it's the variety, especially if they're a CEO or a little bit higher level in the company or a founder. They're not just wearing one hat. They're not just doing one thing. They love the variety and shifting gears, because a couple of people explained it. It keeps their brain running. It runs all day. It doesn't get stuck. I don't get bogged down in doing the same repetitive stuff. So
right. And as an entrepreneur, you have the ability to adjust that. I think the one thing I would emphasize with your listeners is, I think there's this unrealistic expectation. I think many of my friends who either voluntarily or involuntarily leave the corporate world, I probably do a call once a month where they say, hey, I just got downsized, or I got a package, and I want to do what you do, and hire me for one day, and I'll charge $10,000 and I'll be off the other 30 days of the month or 29 days of the month. And I don't think they understand that that you probably are going to do equally, if not more work. The difference is the work is going to be directly related to what you want to do, and kind of where your vision is for how you want to kind of create and craft this next version of your life.
Yes. Yeah. And you're building an entity. You're building something that's yours, not for somebody else who can change things up without your control.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm read lots of books, so I like to ask every guest. So personal reasons to keep my own reading list filled. What's the best book that you've read or listened to recently? Fiction or nonfiction? Your choice.
Well, I probably can't plug my book, right? The Leader of Oz, right?
We've got that one there, and I'll definitely put that in the show notes for anybody that wants it. That's actually one I will add to my list because I'd be interested to read that.
I think the one that I've read, I try to do a book every other week, right? So I try to get one book done every 2 weeks. This one in particular, which the audio people can't see, is called Positive Intelligence. And anyone that really wants to get a really deep understanding of their emotional intelligence and things that keep them moving forward and things that hold them back. If they haven't read that book, that's a best read. And I read the book a couple of years ago, and I got so excited that I signed up, and it's a 26-week program to get certified to teach that. And I've been teaching that for the last couple of years, both within tech teams as well as individuals, and it's really been life changing. The guy who wrote it, a guy by the name of Shahzad Shamin, is he's basically taken the concept of emotional intelligence and he's put an operating system on it, and it actually runs on your smartphone, and it's combining kind of mindfulness, meditation, emotional intelligence, neuroscience, pulling them all together in a very, very simple way. And it's really been life-changing for me, as well as for many of the people that have been going through the 6-week program with us.
Okay. That's one I haven't heard of, but definitely one that I will check out. Interesting that they can tie that, something that's more emotional, but tie that into an app. But
yes,
there truly is an app for everything, right?
There is, and they've done an amazing job. And I think one of the things that they found, and I found, is it's constantly giving that opportunity to allow your brain to kind of decompress in 2-minute increments, just to be able to flush all of that stuff out of the RAM so that you can stay focused. And our tendency is just to keep loading it up.
Yeah.
And it just gets clogged up, and we just try to push harder, and it just doesn't work.
I saw an article recently about they mentioned Zoom, but any kind of a conference call, and people just stacking them up with the only amount of time in between meetings is to close one and start the next. And they said you should take at least 5 minutes.
Right.
Move away from your dogs, walk around, at least to put some closure on the meeting you just finished. Maybe you take a note or two if you need to, and I guess flush the mind to get ready for the next one. Because they say if you just back them all together, then it's high stress and a low productive day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the same idea.
Yeah, sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, and
yes.
And I think particularly as a U.S. culture, that's not ingrained in our culture. And I think the more that we can do it, the more you'll recognize the value of it. The key is it's we live in what I would call a correlation, a causational culture. Like it's if I put an hour in this, I get an hour of that, or I get this amount of return. And this stuff, the mindfulness, the focus, the clearing, that's more correlational. It's going to take some time to build up those neural pathways and allow your brain to recognize that. And it will come. And when it does come, it's amazing. And so read the book. I actually have a site people can go and get the assessments for free. If you want, I can give you the site. It's just pqtrainingandcoaching.com. Any of your listeners can go there. You'll get a pop-up, and it'll send you a quick start guide, and it'll just say, hey, you can take all the assessments. There's no cost for the assessments, and you can figure out your brain saboteurs, the things that are holding you back, and identify the strength of what he calls your sage of kind of how well your brain is formed. And it'll give you activities. The book it's just incredible. Gives you lots of activities and focus. So so go there and hopefully they'll enjoy the assessments.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'll get that link in the show notes so any listener can go there and find it easily.
Great.
So it sounds like you've got a lot going on, but what's ahead for you and your team in the next year or 18 months?
Well, I think, one of the things is that we've been very, very fortunate that we've had lots and lots of, or in fact, essentially 100% of our clients are repeat clients, right? That we do our big program is called the Leading Forward Academy, 6-month program, that we do virtually or on site. Most of them we're doing virtually at the moment.
Yeah.
And we've decided that we are going to probably add 1 or 2 more companies to the portfolio. And that's what we've actively been doing the last week or so, is to be able to expand that. So between that and then, I've gone off and done my ICF, International Coach Federation, coaching certification. I've done the positive intelligence certification, emotional intelligence. I've done all of those, and I'm starting adding additional people that I can coach. My niche in particular is, I coach technical experts who happen to be leaders or managers that want to really become leaders and have the hard conversations so that they can grow to the next level and, really accelerate their success.
Okay. That sounds like that'd be a lot of fun. And you meet some really interesting people.
Ton of fun. I get to work with people all around the world at all different levels. And quite often I learn as much as I think, hopefully they're learning from me.
Yes, understood. So I want to thank you, Kevin, for coming on the show and sharing all this great information, and it's helpful to me, and I know helpful to the audience as well. If people have any questions, they want to learn more about you or reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
Certainly just you can send me an email, just Kevin at Magna Leadership, all one word, MAGNA leadership.com. You can go to our site, magnaleadership.com. If you want, you can, call, leave a message in our office number. I will get back to you within 48 hours at 623-252-2389. Right. That's our office line, and you'll be able to get a hold of me. So yeah, so any one of those ways. And the one thing I'll promise is I love to help other people, particularly younger people moving into management. My promise to you is if you do contact me and you want to have a discussion, you'll get absolutely 100% no sales. I'm not going to try to sell you anything or whatever. If I can help you be successful and there's some things we can do together in the future, great. If not, hopefully I can give you everything that you need in the phone call or the first correspondence.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. It's generous and very valuable. So thank you. Thank you for letting them know that. And I'll put a note on that in the show notes too, when I have all your contact information so people can reach out. So thanks again, Kevin. I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you've got grandkids and other things waiting, but I love talking with you. It was a great call and a lot of great information. So I want to say thanks again.
It's been my pleasure, Steve. Thanks for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.